Howdy everyone. Topic for today, Bermudagrass maintenance and the Bermudagrass calendar. So let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. So we've got more construction noise today. Again, unavoidable. Grass is still brown. Green up a little bit. I don't know. What am I at, like 10% green up maybe. But the bulbs are a poppin', and it's a great day to talk about the Bermudagrass calendar. So let's talk about how this video is going to be split up. First, we're going to talk about the Bermudagrass calendar. So I've got 3 of them. I printed off one from the University of Arkansas, woo pig suey, one from Oklahoma State, because I like Ricky Fowler, and one from NC State. And I basically just took those 3, kind of put a summary together of all the main points from any Bermudagrass calendar you're going to find. This stuff is going to be a little bit variable, so say you live in South Texas and you've got Bermudagrass, the dates are going to be a little bit different. You have to look up one from your local university or extension office. And I will try to make sure to have all of the Bermudagrass calendars linked below, along with some other helpful Bermudagrass maintenance tip links. So within these Bermudagrass calendars, there are recommendations for the amount of fertilizer you should put down, something like 1 pound of nitrogen every 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm going to make sure to go through and calculate some fertilizer for you and show you how to break that down based on the numbers on the bag. And then at the end, we'll go through some Bermudagrass maintenance highlights, some things that, you know, are helpful but didn't really seem to fit in with the calendar exactly. So there you go. So first up, the Bermudagrass calendar. We're going to start with December, January, and February. There's really not a whole lot to do on your lawn because it's kind of like this. It's pretty dormant, so the grass doesn't need anything. There is a recommendation in one of these calendars, maybe 2 of them, that said you should water if it's super dry, but other than that, not much to do. Weed control is the main thing. So if you've got weeds, I have a few. I don't know if you can see them right over there near the flower beds where the pre-emergent barrier starts to break down a little bit faster, maybe because of weed eating, I don't really know. But I got some weeds that I need to take care of here, and that's pretty much all you need to do in the wintertime. And then I guess clean up leaves if you have leaves. I don't really have a whole lot. This is the only tree in my yard. But for weed control, it's actually pretty helpful because a few of these calendars actually list specific products that'll help you get rid of a lot of weeds. So Ortho Weed Be Gone is one that's specifically mentioned here, and that's available at like pretty much any big box store. And then the NC State Bermudagrass calendar specifically mentions atrazine to kill poa annua and winter broadleaf. So again, there are specific things in here. They're all going to be linked below. A couple of these calendars do say that you can spray Roundup on your lawn if it's fully dormant. The trick there is to know if it's fully dormant. If there's any little green sprouts popping up in the middle of the winter because it's not cold enough to make it go completely dormant, you're going to kill it. The main recommendation with Roundup is if you're going to do it and you know that your grass is completely dormant, that you do a uniform application instead of spot spraying, because if you do a uniform application and there was a little bit that wasn't dormant, you're at least going to have uniform green up in the spring. I guess if you spot spray and it wasn't dormant, you're going to have like brown patches and you're not going to know what it is in the spring. You might think that you have some kind of fungus or disease. So something else that's good to do about this time of year before you do a whole lot of applying any fertilizers to your lawn is a soil test. So this is a Yard Mastery soil test. It's actually powered by My Soil. So it's the My Soil test kit with the Yard Mastery branding all over it. But Alan Haynes sent me this one. Thanks for that, Alan. But this is something that I need to do this year because the Bermudagrass calendars say it's helpful to know specifically what your pH is, so you know if you need to apply lime or sulfur, but also just any other macro or micronutrient insufficiencies. Get all the results just in a few days. So I'll make sure to have a link to this down below, also from the yardmastery.com store. But that about does it for the winter. Then you move on to the spring, March, April, May, and that's where I am right now. See? Tulip. Step 1 in the spring is the scalp. So you want to take off as much of this brown stuff as you possibly can. So the recommendations in these calendars, they'll talk about how you want to take it lower than your normal cutting height. So if you're planning on keeping your grass at 2.5 inches, maybe you just want to scalp it down to 1 inch. I like to keep my grass about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit longer than that some of the time. So I need to scalp mine down really low. I basically try to scalp it as low as I can. Last spring I did that. I scalped as low as I possibly could, and I wished I could have gotten it lower. Some people will even burn off their dormant Bermuda. I don't know if I recommend that because like today, look, it's a little bit windy and I have no idea how hard that would be to control. Anyway, there are people who are way braver than I am. I'm not gonna burn mine. Some people burn it. They get rid of all of the brown dormant Bermuda grass and start from dirt. So there you go. You're not gonna scalp it too much. Don't be afraid of taking away as much brown as you can. Quiet down, please. Quiet, please. So then fertilizing. The instructions are to apply 1/2 to 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet after the lawn turns green. I know that a lot of people like to put down fertilizer sooner than that to help it green up and speed that process along, But again, these calendars are kind of the Bermudagrass 101 sort of things, and they're giving you like the bare minimum instructions here. I do want to pause real quick and say, and I'll say this 1,000 times, there are lots and lots of different ways to take care of Bermuda grass. There are lots and lots of different ways to take care of every grass. But Bermuda grass, you know, that's what we're talking about today. There are lots of different ways to do it. And so these calendars aren't giving you all the options. There are so many different ways. And that's a big point that I'm trying to get across this year, is that you can do it however you want to. You try to find something to model off of, but you're gonna have to play it by ear some of the time. For example, over this past weekend, I had lots of big plans for yard work, but it rained like crazy and it's super soggy still. So basically you just play it by ear, and whenever you can get to it, you can get to it. You can't just schedule everything out perfectly. It doesn't always work out like that. In fact, it's very frustrating trying to take care of a lawn and make it look really nice. Kind of like golf. It makes you angry sometimes, but you still love it anyway. Anyway, back to fertilizing, I guess is where we were. 1/2 pound to 1 pound of nitrogen after the lawn greens up. Some people like to do it a little bit earlier than that and speed that process along and try to get it to green up faster. Again, lots of different ways to do it. But before I get too far into anything, we're talking about 1/2 pound to 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Let's do a little sample fertilizer calculation real quick, just in case anybody's unfamiliar with that. All right, everybody, I figured we'd jump into the classroom and do some math on a fertilizer calculation. I've got a little tool here checking my numbers. Let's get right into it. So I just went online real quick and I found the first fertilizer that popped up. It happened to be a 2905. So that's 29% nitrogen, 0 phosphorus, and 5% potassium. So let's say you're trying to figure out how much nitrogen you want to put on your yard, because that's the most common metric used. They say put down 1 pound of nitrogen, or put down, 3/4 of a pound of nitrogen, whatever it is. Let's start with 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. If you want to put down 1 pound of nitrogen with this product right here, we need to do some math to figure out how much nitrogen is actually going to go down. So if this is 29%, we need 100% of 1 pound of nitrogen. And you probably just have to take this as like a formula, because I'm not going to be great at explaining the math. I don't want to go through a whole proof on how this math works out. But this is 100% of 1 pound of nitrogen. So then we have 29% in this product divided by 29 gives us 3.4. Is that right? Yeah. So that means you have to put down 3.4 pounds of this product to get 1 pound of nitrogen. So then let's say, just for example's sake, I picked 7,500 square feet. So if you need 3.4 pounds of this product to get 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, that means 3.4 pounds times 7.5 thousand square feet, and that came out to be 25.5 pounds of product. So you need to get 25.5 pounds of this product to cover your lawn, if you're wanting to do 1 pound per 1,000 square feet. Am I getting this math right? Hey, where'd you go?
Over here.
So then, just for the sake of doing a couple more examples, let's say we wanted to put down 3/4 of a pound per 1,000 square feet. Instead of 100% of a pound of nitrogen, now you're doing 75% of a pound of nitrogen. You want to divide that by the percent of nitrogen that's in the bag, 29, and that math comes out to 2.6. So if we take that same 7.5, so 2.6 times 7.5 thousand square feet, you need 19.5 pounds of this product to cover your yard. So anyway, that formula works out, but I did want to tell you about something really cool. Robert Palmer, Turf Therapy is the name of his YouTube channel, and Turf Therapy is also the name of his app. The app is awesome because you can just put your numbers, put your lawn size in, put your product, put the breakdown, and it'll calculate it out for you. So if you don't want to have to do any of this math, the app makes it really, really simple. Go look it up, the Turf Therapy app on Apple and Android. But for now, let's get back to the calendar. Thanks, Mr. R-Tool. So now we move on to watering. The recommendation for that in the spring is 1 inch of water per week. That's pretty easy for me. Like I said, it's been raining like crazy, and last year anyway, it was wet most of the year. I hardly had to pull out a sprinkler last year. We'll see if we get that lucky this time around. But anyway, that's the recommendation, 1 inch of water per week. And a fun fact, I thought this was pretty cool. Actually, all 3 of these calendars had it in there. They specifically noted that it takes 3 to 5 hours to properly apply 1 inch of water. So now spring weed control. I made a whole video about that. It was actually my last video. I'll make sure to link that one at the end of this video, and then we'll also put that in the description, just so you can go watch that one. It's way more comprehensive on weed control, but the overview is pre-emergent. Pre-emergent is hugely important. You want to put that down in late February to mid-March, somewhere in there, to keep weeds and crabgrass from popping up in the first place. If you have weeds, you still need to put down pre-emergent, but then you want to kill them. You want to use a post-emergent herbicide. And we're going to talk about post-emergent herbicides, I think, a lot this year, because in my Bermudagrass maintenance for beginners sections back there, I've got a lot of weeds, and I'm going to have to kill them, so I'm going to do, I don't know, reviews or like head-to-head challenges for certain herbicides. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss those. And I also have a nut sedge video that I did last year where I put 3 products head-to-head. That's a really good one. I'll make sure to link that in the description, but this isn't a weed killing video. The main point to take away from the spring for weed control is pre-emergent. That's the biggest thing. Put down that pre-emergent. Next topic for Bermudagrass maintenance in the spring is disease control. So the most common 2 diseases that you'll find in your lawn are spring dead spot and dollar spot, at least in this period. And I think it's kind of tough to go into a ton of detail on any of these certain sections. So what I mostly want to do is tell you that spring dead spot and dollar spot are a thing. I did a whole video about dollar spot last year because, again, it was raining a lot, and so that fungus was going crazy. But the main takeaway is that if you have brown patches or brown spots in your lawn, don't rule out disease. That's something to think about, so you can go look up specific stuff and try to find what looks like your issue so that you can find something specific to help you fight it off when it happens. And hopefully I don't have to, but I'm sure that that's going to come up again at some point, so I'll probably do another video in the future about antifungal products. So the next topic is insect control. We're definitely going to have to do insect control videos. The main takeaway for this section in the spring is that you probably need to do something for grubs. Grub prevention is important because you want to keep moles away. Moles. I had a couple of moles last fall that I was battling with, and I've got another one on the edge of my lawn over there that I'm going to have to deal with here pretty soon. But something else with insect control are mosquitoes and ticks. I actually had a company reach out to me, and they want me to test some of their product that's an all-natural mosquito and tick repellent, remover, killer. I'm not exactly sure, but it's going to be exciting. I don't actually know all the details yet because I don't have it. I've just basically just touched base with them, and they said, do you want to try this stuff out and kind of test it for us? And I said, well, sure. It sounds pretty cool because it's pet safe, kid safe. You can spray it out here and get rid of ticks and mosquitoes. So I thought that was pretty cool. But kind of just to summarize real quick, I think for Bermudagrass maintenance in the springtime, you want to scalp at some point, and you definitely want to put down pre-emergent. Just make sure you don't put pre-emergent and then like scalp it and haul all that away. Make sure that pre-emergent gets watered into the dirt first. Let's move on to the summer. So June, July, and August. The Bermuda is going to start to grow faster once it gets hot, so that probably means mowing more often. It depends on how high you keep your grass. Remember, there are lots of different ways to do Bermuda lawn care. But a couple of the calendars specifically said that you could mow between 1/2 inch and 2.5 inches. But these hybrid Bermuda grasses can do, well, way shorter than 1/2 inch. It's raining now.
Seriously, we are getting there. We're really getting there. Like, all these spots are nearly filled in. These spots, so close. Look at that. All those green shoots there.
See what I mean? Well, like I said, it depends on your mowing height, how frequently you're gonna have to mow, but for a general rule, twice a week is pretty good. If you can mow twice a week, I think you're gonna have success almost any mowing height, but the shorter you go, you may have to mow more often than that. People mow every other day or like every day. There's also some fancy stuff you can do with plant growth regulator, and that can help you mow less frequently. Again, those are more advanced things we'll talk about later on. This is the Bermudagrass maintenance for beginners, the 101. So let's stick to that for now. So fertilization in the summer, their recommendations say 1/2 pound to 1 pound of nitrogen for every 4 to 6 weeks. NC State specifically says 1 pound. Last year that was kind of my strategy and it seemed to work out pretty well. 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per month seemed to do well for me. Now, you also have to pay attention to what type of fertilizer you're using, because there are some slow release fertilizers that work pretty well, and you can put them out at the beginning of the month and then just let it ride. And for the beginner or somebody who doesn't want to put a ton of extra work into your lawn, if you're looking to do the bare minimum, that's probably going to work pretty well for you. 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per month during the summer months. And again, there are lots of different ways to do it. So a lot of people will divide that up. And so you can spread that out a little bit if you do something like half a pound at the beginning of the month, and 2 weeks later you do another half a pound. And you can also mix it up between granular fertilizer maybe at the beginning of the month and come around with some liquid and spray that to give it a little bit of boost throughout the month. I like to use a lot of liquid iron as well. So you've got to figure out a plan, but that's easier said than done, because as soon as you plan on putting it out 2 weeks later, it's going to rain for 4 days in a row or something like that, and then you don't want to put it out at that time because it's going to wash away or whatever. So take it easy on yourself, and as long as you're following some sort of general guideline, you're going to be okay. Your lawn can look really nice. So then watering in the summer, this is sort of dictated by how hot and how dry it is, but 1 to 1.25 inches per week. The University of Arkansas specifically says to do it in the morning, and then they kind of reiterate that tidbit about it taking 3 to 5 hours to properly apply 1 inch of water. So there you go. And then pest and weed control as needed. Again, I felt like nut sedge was a big deal in my lawn during this time. It was in the summertime, and that's when I made that video that I did before. And so it was raining a lot, the nut sedge was going crazy. You gotta kill it. You go find the weed killer that matches the weed you've got, and you kill it. So that's kind of the end of the summertime Bermuda lawn maintenance section. The main takeaways being fertilizer, half a pound to 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet every 4 to 6 weeks, watering 1 to 1.25 inches every week, and then killing weeds as needed. So now we can move on to the fall, September, October, November. So first up, mowing. Pretty much the same as any other time. Mowing still pretty frequently, but a lot of people will say to raise your height of cut a little bit in the fall, just to give it a little more insulation for the winter. The North Carolina Bermudagrass calendar specifically recommends raising your height of cut 1/2 inch in the fall, and they recommend doing that a little bit sooner if you're in a really cold area, like up in the mountains of North Carolina, versus the people in East North Carolina, they said do it later on, like October. And then fertilizing in the fall, they say to drop it down to half a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, and just do that in September, about 4 weeks before your first frost. And they do say that in the fall you want to supplement with something that has potassium, so something like a 5-10-30 or a 10-0-40 for that last application that you do. But if you can't find that, you can do like the normal nitrogen-rich fertilizer and do that half a pound for nitrogen, and then also you could use something like a 0-0-50, which is potassium sulfate, and do that at 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet, or you could use a 0-0-60, which is muriate of potash, and you could do that at 1.6 pounds per 1,000 square feet. And in the fall, mostly only watering if it's really, really dry. And there you have it. Like I said, this is a very, very basic approach. That's kind of the bare minimum, but you can have a pretty nice lawn just doing the bare minimum. So you know about the law of diminishing returns, or the 80-20 rule. They talk about how you can put in 20% of the effort and achieve 80% of the results, and then it takes a lot more effort to get to that last 20% of the results. So I just think you can make a huge impact doing the bare minimum, and then everything you do over that's just going to be like icing on the cake and make it even nicer. So doing just the Bermuda grass maintenance stuff that we covered here is going to help you get a really nice lawn, and then you can just keep taking steps up, adding more advanced practices, and again, we'll talk about those in future videos for sure when they come up on my lawn. But now let's go on to those Bermuda grass maintenance highlights, those things that I told you didn't really seem to fit anywhere great within the calendar, and so I just wanted to kind of bullet point, go through these things real quick at the end. And so we talk about cutting height. So Bermuda grass can be cut between 1/2 inch to 2.5 inches. Again, there's a little bit of leeway on either side of that, but it's somewhat dictated by how often you want to mow and just, I guess, the style that you like. I happen to like my grass when it's really short. I like the way that looks. Some people like it when it's taller, and I think it can look really good when it's taller. Some of my neighbors have really nice lawns, actually. If you pretty much have no weeds and you have Bermuda grass that's nice and even at whatever cutting height, I think it can look really good. But also somewhat dictated by the evenness of your lawn. If you've got dips, you're gonna scalp if you try to cut it really low. So you either have to level it off, or you've got to cut higher so that you don't dip into those and hit the grass too low and scalp it. And the way that you scalp grass is if you break the 1/3 rule. The 1/3 rule says that you're not supposed to cut off more than 1/3 of the length of any grass blade at any given time. So if you cut off half, that theory would say that you're gonna scalp the grass in those places, and then you're gonna have to wait for it to grow back up from the ground to fill in that spot that you scalped. I don't know that that's a hard and fast rule. Basically, your grass is gonna be healthier the less of the blade that you cut off at any given time. But there are a lot of times that I've gone in and cut way more than 1/3 of the blade off, and it ended up being just fine. So you maybe take that one with a grain of salt, but that's the recommendation because that's the best way to do it. Next bullet point, thatch removal. If you have more than 1/2 inch of thatch, you're supposed to remove it, either with a verticutter, dethatcher, power rake, vertical mower, dethatching rake, whatever you want to call it. All those different tools can work, but you want to get rid of all that dead material that's down around the base of your grass blades so that your grass can spread into those areas, and you also don't risk as much disease when you get rid of the thatch as well. And my next bullet point here is that I wanted to read a couple of quotes from these Bermuda grass calendars. I'm going to read one from the NC State Bermuda grass calendar that says, Bermuda lawns perform best when maintained at 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch using a reel mower. And then the University of Arkansas says, hybrid Bermuda grass looks best when mowed 3 times per week at 1/2 inch to 1.5 inch with a reel mower. I just wanted you to know I'm not making that up. That's not my opinion. Well, it is my opinion, but it's not just my opinion. That's coming straight from these Bermudagrass calendars, that a reel mower works better. Again, I don't think that you have to have a reel mower. You want to keep your blades sharp no matter what type of grass you have, but if you keep it higher with a rotary mower, I think it can still look really good. The next bullet point is that Bermuda grass can be seeded, sawed, sprigged, or plugged. There are lots of different varieties of Bermuda grass. There are hybrid Bermuda grasses, there's common Bermuda grass. I actually, the company that put in the sod here in my house when it was built had mostly hybrid Bermuda grass, but then I think there were like 3 big rolls. They put these huge rolls of sod out, and 3 or 4 of them were common Bermuda grass. And so there was this thicker bladed Bermuda grass mixed in my lawn. I've really been trying to get rid of that, and I think I've done a pretty good job. I'll show you that this year for sure, because I can already kind of tell that the common Bermuda grass is coming up a little bit faster than the hybrid right now. So I'm still seeing it. But my main strategy has been mow low, mow often, and that has kind of helped the hybrid Bermuda grass to outcompete the common Bermuda grass. But yeah, common Bermuda grass is more of that thicker blade, and then hybrid Bermuda grass usually has a little more of a fine blade to it. And there are lots of different types of hybrid Bermuda grass. So the last bullet point is growing Bermuda grass in the shade. There are lots of Bermuda grasses that claim to be more shade tolerant, but none of them are shade proof. So either way, even if you have shade tolerant Bermuda grass, growing Bermuda grass in the shade is still tough. I have a spot in my backyard that's kind of shaded, and after I did my sand leveling project, it took forever to come back. A lot of it didn't actually come back. The parts that are in the shade had a really rough time, and they didn't really recover before fall. So I'm gonna let those recover, and if I level with sand again, if I do another top dressing, I'm not going to do it, maybe not even at all in those areas, but probably just definitely not as thick in those areas for sure. Bermuda does not like shade. But I'd say that about does it for this video, everybody. I think the comment for today, so we like to make those comments tips so people can go down there and kind of see what everybody else is doing. There's no wrong answer here. Go down and comment what your cutting height is if you've got Bermuda. Because like I said, I want to make sure that everybody knows there are lots of different ways to do it. I think it can look good at lots of different heights. So I want to know what your cutting height is and maybe how often you mow if you're one of the more experienced people that came across this video. Because remember, there are lots of different ways to do Bermuda grass maintenance successfully. And as I alluded to in other parts of this video, we're definitely going to talk about more advanced techniques. This is the 101. This is the beginner video, the kind of general overview for the entire year. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss those other tips, and we will catch you later, lawn tools.
Bum bum bum